All right, it's Ty here. Welcome to the next in the 67 steps, frameworks, guidelines, principles, rules, things you need to follow, all that good stuff to get whatever it is you want out of life. Good life, health, wealth, love, happiness. I call this one the Shaolin monk and touching an electric fence. Why everything is your fault. Now, this is actually going to be an interesting conversation because there's a twofold kind of in a way, not everything is your fault, but we're going to talk today about the perspective where it is your fault. I've gotten some new insight from different research that I've read on the flip side of this about everything being your fault. But let me just say this. I've done martial arts for a long time, and I was about, 20, 21, and I tried Kung Fu from the Shaolin Temple, taught by a guy who's, I think, one of the only Americans, his name is Brad Huffman, to actually grow up training in the Shaolin Temple in China. So that's one of the oldest forms of martial arts, Shaolin Kung Fu. So he was talking to me one day, and he said, Ty, I don't know what we were talking about, crime. Somehow we were talking about crime. And I said, whatever, it sucks when this happens. Someone, I think, got mugged or assaulted that we knew. And he was like, you know what my Kung Fu teacher used to tell me? This old Chinese guy. He said, Brad, if you're walking down the street and you're 30 years old, somebody walks up to you and, beats you up or assaults you, takes your stuff. He said, that's your fault because you should have started training at 5 years old in Kung Fu. In Shaolin Kung Fu. That was the mentality, the mindset that these Shaolin monks bring to what they're doing. I've always thought about that. I've thought about that for the last 20 years. Well, not quite 20 years. I'm not quite that old. Last 10 years maybe. And I'm like, what are the implications if that's true? What would the world look like? What would your life look like? What would my life look like if we took the mindset that everything actually was our fault? So let's take something a little more likely to happen to you than, let's say, most of us are not going to get attacked, right? That's not a very common crime. So let's just take something a little more common. Recession comes. You lose a job. Your job gets outsourced. Somebody betrays you. Somebody breaks up with you. Spouse, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, they cheat on you. An employee critical to your business destroys everything. A partner doesn't live up to their end of the deal in a business deal. Whatever it is. So the first question you ask me is, you should ask yourself is this possible to anticipate this type of thing? Could you or I, a reasonable human being, anticipate that something like this would happen to you as a human? There's very few things that you can't anticipate happening. Like, I can pretty much tell you, I don't care if you're 10 years old or 90 years old. Over the next few years, if you live that long, you're going to encounter some health problems. There's a tremendous amount of organisms that want to live on planet Earth that are not Homo sapiens. Some of them are viruses, some of them are bacteria, some of them are bugs, whatever you want to name it, and they want to be alive. And to them, they have just as much a claim on life as you do. And so if they invade your body and make you sick, they're happy and you're not. We can anticipate that happening. I can anticipate physics being a bear. Like, physics is annoying, If you trip and fall, you will break something if you fall hard enough. I can anticipate, I read the stats, by the time you're like 40 years old or 45 years old, you will have a 40% chance of having some disability that literally causes you to have to take off work or something for 6 months. So that's huge, right? I can anticipate something disastrous happening to you socially. So if the Shaolin monk is correct, and everything is our fault, then I think what he means is everything not prepared for is our fault. So my question is, are you coming at life with the preparation mindset? How full is your tool belt, as I like to call it? How many tools in that tool belt of yours? Social skills, intangible skills, winning friends, influencing people, persuasion, influence, charisma, perseverance, hard work, lack of removal of procrastination, removal of sloth and unreliability. Like, those are soft skills. And then you got to have hard skills. I talk about these. I just did a little book of the day, and I was talking about people who come work to me think like, oh, Ty, he just like knows some intangible stuff, is good with people. And then they're surprised. They're like, no, that guy actually knows real stuff you could put your hands on. You know, for some of you, that's like get a skill, become a surgeon, become an accountant, become a bricklayer, learn how to cook. Like, whatever the thing is, you have to have soft skills, hard skills, and you need a lot of them. I'll tell you, I've talked about this, rich friends, poor friends. The difference, one of those, we talked about you got to get good at identifying the difference between rich friends and poor friends. My poor friends have like one tool in their tool belt. They're like good at one little thing. They don't have a set of intangible and a set of hard skills and soft skills. And that's why they're poor. That's why they're unhappy. They don't have enough. They don't bring enough weapons to the battle, man. When you go into battle, World War I, even before then, the Russians and Japanese went to war in the early 1900s. One side had machine guns, and the other side had horses. The side with horses did not win. That's putting it. That's understating it. In your life, the world's going to bring you adversities at the level of machine gun level adversities. I'm talking about this book, Louis Zamperini. You know, I have it here somewhere. Devil at My Heels. Angelina Jolie's making a movie. This movie will blow your mind. 47 days this guy floated in a life raft near death. No food, no water except rainwater. Fighting off great white sharks. Japanese shooting at their life raft. No, crazy. There's 3 of them on the raft. One guy, Mac, went crazy. 100-foot waves and swells and storms, and then finally being captured by the Japanese fleet and being tortured for, I think, a couple years. Right? That's the machine gun of life. I'll read you this fascinating thing from Zamperini. While he was out there floating here, he says, where is it? It's just amazing book, by the way. If you haven't read this, you need to be following. I've talked about this. Read biographies when you go to bed. That's like a must. He says, look, no one wants to crash, but we had. I knew the way to handle it was to take a deep breath, relax, and keep a cool head. Survival was a challenge, and the way to meet it was to be prepared. I trained myself to make it. I was in top physical condition. Remember, that's before he crashed. He was an Olympic. He competed in the Olympics as a runner. He trained himself even when he was in the military, above and beyond the training. And when the dark day came for him, he survived. Mac, on the other hand, didn't. Was not prepared physically or mentally. He had Zamperini, who survived. Zamperini, sorry. He had 100 pounds of weight, fat, and muscle that he lost. Almost died. Went from like 170 to like 70 pounds. But yet, that muscle and preparation is what kept him alive, even in the POW camps. So, for you, I think the Shaolin monk was right in the sense that he meant it. Once you go into life with the perspective that all things that are going to happen to me are within my realm, within my ability to prepare for, it changes your life. Remember, the media, the news, the people who control our eyeballs and our day all day long, those people do not know what they're talking about for the most part. That's why they're reporters. Okay, I don't mean that. Hopefully you're not a reporter. I have a personal thing. I find a very small percentage of reporters to be interesting people. Some are, though, by the way. The good ones are great, and there's a lot of horrible ones. And it's not just the reporters, it's the cog of the machine. We talked about media bias, anthropic principles, and such. People are out there spreading messages, consuming your brain, your glycogen burning in your brain, and telling you that, look, here's how it goes down. You're tiptoeing through life. Everything's supposed to be perfect, right? I don't know where they get that. No sense of history. No understanding that in the last, Will Durant says in the last, 10,000 years or 6,000 years, there's been 11 years where humans haven't been at war. Maybe it's not 6,000, since BC, since Alexander the Great and these guys. 11 years humans haven't been at war. How many years have there been there when humans didn't have some tremendous physical issue, whether it be sickness, plague, every year of human existence? So don't be so egocentric that you're like, I'm the center of the universe. Everything's supposed to happen well for me. It's not. It is not supposed to happen well for you. Or everything's not supposed to go easy for you. It's not going to go easy for you. And like John Wooden says, prepare for the dark day. The dark clouds come for you, and they will come for me. So Shaolin Temple, very, very interesting perspective. Next, that's why I called it, grabbing an electric fence. Joel Salatin, he told me his dad used to say, Joel, if you don't have it in your head, you have to have it in your heel. Let me see if I can find this, something I think you'll find funny here. I just got a new iPad, by the way. I never used an iPad. We'll see if I like it. All right. Anyway, I'll find that later. His dad said, if you don't have it in your head, you have to have it in your heel. What did he mean? Very simple. I was with Joel Salatin. I was 19 or 18. Joel said to me, he said, look, Ty, we're going to go out to the barn today. We got to move the cows. So we're at the barn. We're moving the cows. And he says, how did he put it? This is a funny story. Oh, yeah. I'm having to think back here. He says, Ty, we need 2 electric fence. They're called knobs that you'd put the electric wire to keep the cows in and not get shocked. He's like, we need 2 electric fence knobs. We need 3 pieces of string this long, and we need 2 reels of electric fence. We're going to go walk a mile to the far end of the farm, and we're going to move the cows. So I was like, great. I got it. So we got out there, and Joel walked fast. We walked. We get there, and Joel starts moving the fence, and he goes, where's the second electric fence white porcelain knob? And I was like, oops, I forgot it. And he said, Ty, if you don't have it in your head, you're going to have it in your heel. And I was like, what does that mean? He said, well, you get to walk back to the barn and go get the second knob, white knob. Sure enough, I walked a mile back and a mile back to the barn and then a mile back to Joel. That whole day, I walked probably 5-6 miles, all added up. Joel didn't believe in using 4-wheelers or anything. He's like, walk. Anyway, he goes, that was his little life lesson, and I've never forgot that. And in hindsight, as I learned the same thing from the Shaolin monk and Brad, the same question. If you don't prepare, it's going to hurt. You're going to have it in your heel. And so many of us, myself included, we look back at our life and we're like, oh, all these mistakes had to happen because that's how we learn stuff. BS. Sure, you do learn stuff, but like Warren Buffett says, it's a heck of a lot easier to learn from other people and not learn from your own mistakes. So a good portion of our life, I'm going to think 30, 40, 50%, is you and I having lots of pain in our heel. Heel. Stop with the heel pain. Prepare. Charlie Munger says, I've spent every day of my life preparing for the worst, and I'm not pessimistic for it. I'm not depressed for it. He said, I'm happier for it. A lot of people, it's funny, there's this weird thing that if you say stuff to people, like, oh, let's be careful and not get in a car crash, you're like, don't say that. It's going to jinx us or something. As if stating something you should prepare for is the same as being negative. It's not. Louis Zamparelli talks about, or Louis, he talks about even when he was Mac, who was the guy freaking out in the raft who didn't make it in the end, who was saying, we're all going to die, we're all going to die, we're all going to die. Let me read that to you. There is some truth in terms of being optimistic, and I talk about this is differentiation between the end game. You have to get to the end game, you see. There's an end game to it all. But it's okay in the short term, when you're not talking about the end game, to be a little bit pessimistic and prepare for the worst. All right, here we go. He says, Mac suddenly screamed, we're going to die, we're all going to die. Louis said, I couldn't believe my ears. Are you kidding? We're not going to die. Mac said, yeah, we're all going to die. You know we are. Though we'd never had time to radio a distress call, I absolutely believed we'd be saved. Our failure to land was itself a signal. The other B-24 on the search mission was probably already in the ground, looking for us. So I said, hey, we're going to get picked up today or tomorrow, I said with certainty, looking at Phil and Mac. Don't worry, we're not going to die. We've rescued plenty of guys, and now they're out searching for us. We'll be eating dinner with a Marine Steiner tomorrow night. But Matt kept screaming. I tried reverse psychology. I threatened to report him when he got picked up. Neither worked. So I did what I had to do. I cracked him across the face. He flew backwards, surprised yet somehow content. He regained control, and for the moment kept his fear to himself. I call that, I'm writing a book, and I'm tempted to call it Never Trust a Man Who Hasn't Been Punched in the Face. And you and I need a good punch in the face sometimes because we lose perspective and we start going, preparation isn't important. What's important is just positive words. It's not. Positive words are only effective when they come in the context of massive preparation. If you don't have it in your head, you have it in your heel. As the Shaolin monk said, everything will be your fault, because the other side is, who else are you going to blame? When the recession comes and you or I end up bankrupt, who do you want to blame? Let's say you blame corporate America. Who's corporate America? Sometimes, like I say, I'm not really into politics, but that Occupy Wall Street thing. The only problem with occupying Wall Street, and I understand the point, and maybe they have a good point, and I don't understand it as well. I need to do my research, but guess who runs Wall Street? The shareholders. And guess who are the shareholders in the world we live in today? Guess who owns most of the shares of most of the large corporations? You and me. If you have a 401k plan, we are the ones who own it. So at the end of the day, it's not Occupy Wall Street, because Wall Street is us. It's democracy, my friend. There's no dictators that you need to revolt against. Everybody can be fired. You don't like the CEO of Bank of America? You get enough shareholders together and you vote him out. He's got a board. Now, I'm oversimplifying it, and there's plenty of corporate corruptions. I'm not downplaying it. What I'm saying is, what do you want to live a life? You want to live a life like Mac in the boat, crying out? No, you want to be like this guy, Survivor. And what he says, for a moment, anxiety clutched me. The sea could swallow us all, but rather than give in, I made myself a promise. No matter what lay ahead, I'd never think about dying, only about living. Despite our situation, I felt so fortunate to be alive that I was actually happy. Maybe it seems odd now, but it didn't then. You and I, it seems odd at times when things come at us, when the pain that is at our heel, because we're having to walk back because we didn't think ahead. As Lao Tzu says, prepare for what is difficult when it is easy. You know when it's easy to save money? When you're not broke, when you don't need it. You can't save money when you need it the most because you're already broke, and the definition of broke is having no money. So my suggestion is, why didn't you start saving when you were 5? Now you might say, ah, that's not realistic. And in a certain sense, at 5, I wasn't saving any money. But if you're a parent, you making your 5-year-olds save a good bit of money? Your 10-year-olds, your 15-year-olds, your 18-year-olds? No. What I find is we live in a world where it's the blind leading the blind. Blind parents leading blind children. And I don't mean that to disparage you if you're a parent or disparage any one person. But come on, guys. Let's talk real talk here. Read the paper. The real newspaper, not the media-driven one. When I say read the paper, I'm like the paper of life right in front of you. It's the blind leading the blind, and everybody blaming the blind man in front of them for leading them astray. Hey man, if I tell a blind person to lead me on a trail through the mountains and I fall, who are you going to blame? The blind man? I'm going to blame myself, going, what are you thinking? If during the recession, which will come again, and lots of them in your life, if you're lucky enough to live a long time on this planet, you know how many recessions are coming your way, my friend? The nature of capitalism is extremely cyclical. Everything, by the way, I had a friend who was sure that gold was the best thing to invest in. I said, man, you don't understand the core basics of how money works. Gold will always be cyclical. How some people are like, housing, invest in housing. I'm like, don't be a fool, my friend. There is no asset class, gold, silver, commodities, shorting the market, long-term value, whatever. There's no one thing that works. Assets move. We live in a world that at every second the universe has expanded. At every millisecond, your body is different. Osteoclast and osteoblasts have eaten away your skeleton and rebuild it. So your skin is regenerated, I think, every 24 hours, depending on how old you are. It's a continual morphing of life. So the only thing that is guaranteed, it's not death and taxes, as they say. It's not that. That's not true. The only thing guaranteed is that you're going to continually be pushed to move through time. And inherently in the concept of moving through time means change. That's like how we define time. Remember, as Hawking says in Theory of Everything, time we define thermodynamically, cosmologically, and psychologically. And all of these, Hawking says, are irreversible. So the fact that you're being pushed and there's motion and action through time means there's always a change. So tomorrow, expect a change. And to the extent that you prepare for changes, you will be happier. As Munger said, I spent my whole life preparing for tomorrow being a bad day, and I'm happier for it, not more sad. Forget about the law of attraction and all this stuff. I mean, there's some truth to it. If that's your thing, I'm not disparaging it. But like I said, I'm going to say what I think, and I may be wrong, but I might be right. You might be attached to some weird dogma. Be surprised. I'm not a dumb guy. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I'm not the dumbest. And when someone looks you straight in the eye that's smart and says, I've thought about this and studied the top people smarter than me, and you might want to check yourself before you wreck yourself, as the slang goes. You might want to check yourself if this is a thought of yours. It's going to come for us. And you're not going to have the power of positive thinking to get yourself out of the way. Now, let me flip the other side. Martin Seligman in Learned Optimism talks about examples of people who make it, who survive, who thrive. And it's very interesting. I don't think that Seligman knew about this guy, but they are correlated. Because what Seligman said is people who are optimists, who don't always blame themselves too much, they seem to be happier in life and they seem to make it. Now you might say, Ty, that seems to be completely diametrically opposed to what you just said about assuming everything's your fault and taking a pessimistic approach. It's not. Aristotle, the answer is in the balance. You cannot be completely unprepared and completely optimistic. And you cannot be completely pessimistic and completely trying to prepare, because there's some things that you cannot prepare for. Ask the dinosaurs. If it's true that the dinosaurs were wiped out by an asteroid, there's not a meteor hitting the Earth How do you prepare for that? There is no preparation. So again, people get confused. They're like, ta, it's all. Well, the two extremes are incorrect. You have to find the balance. As Seligman says, and as here you see where he decided, he says, I made myself a promise. No matter what lay ahead, I'd never think about dying, only about living. In that moment of extreme crisis, he had to keep end game optimistically focused. So what we find is it's okay if your end game has a level of optimism to it. At the end game, you see that with Conrad Hilton, if you read the great hotelier who built the Hilton hotel chain and the great-grandfather of Paris Hilton, who lives here on my street. You know, he was an eternal optimist. I got this book, if you haven't read this. If anybody could be more pessimistic, it's Helen Keller. But she was an optimist, even though she was deaf, mute, blind, cut off from what we'd think cut off from the world, but she was alive. She was truly alive. So for you, the balance is on an end game mindset, you're optimistic. You're perseverant in the midst of a storm. In the day-to-day and in anticipation of tomorrow, you're thinking, what could go wrong and what must I prepare for? So it's not like Joel Salatin said, you're not walking back a mile to get electric fence parts that you could have got on the first time. You're not wasting that part of your life. You're not, the Shaolin monk. You're not unprepared when somebody confronts you. No, it's in the middle. And not just in the middle, but knowing the right time to be optimistic and the right time to be pessimistic. So, I talked about this farm thing and I brought up electric fence, touching an electric fence. The reason I bring up electric fence, I don't know if you've ever been on a farm. The funniest thing is people not used to an electric fence. When you touch that thing, man, it will make you move. It will make you jump. And so the reason, I talk about your heel, talk about the Shaolin monk, and I want to talk also about this fence. When you're on a farm and you're used to the fence, the boundaries that get created by knowing you have to, as I said, check yourself before you walk into that fence, it actually creates order in the biological system. If you're doing organic and all natural approaches to raising animals, you're doing them in rotational grazing with the boundaries and so set by this electric fence. And you don't never want to be the fool who's walking in and grabbing the electric fence from not having, number one, we talked about the preparation mindset. But I'm going to just throw this in addition, understanding the boundaries of who you are in terms of and where you fit in terms of a biological system. Remember, as Freud says, when people say, what's the meaning of life and what's the purpose of life? Freud says, do you ever ask that to your dog or about your dog? No, you just assume the dog's there to be alive. And as Louis Zamperini, I keep calling him Zamperini says, it's like, for him, the purpose of life on that life raft was to survive. So as you define your end game goal, as you prepare for it, you're optimistic like Hilton about the end game, but like Charlie Munger on a day-to-day basis, you're anticipating, preparing for, building skill in to prepare for the calamities that will happen in every area, health, wealth, love, and happiness. You're saving money before you need it. You're lifting weights before you need the muscle. When you're young is when you should lift weights, but you don't really need weights as much when you're young. You need them when you're old. But once you're old, it's harder to lift weights. See, it's a dichotomy. And this is why most people are just zombies passing through life, chasing a mirage. They're not alive, and they're not even chasing something that's real. It's the double whammy of most people in life. The zombie chasing the mirage. You also don't want to be the zombie touching the electric fence, meaning there's natural boundaries to life and there's no respect. And when you touch that thing, it's going to make you pop. It's going to make you jump right off the ground. So as you're doing big picture, you're going very simple. And if you're writing this out, what's my end game goal? That's here. Okay? in between there, oh, and you're here, let's say. So you're optimistic about this. You're like, I will get off this boat. It might take me 47 days of floating out here with no food or no water and great white sharks and being shot at by the Japanese like Louis Zamperini, or being tortured in a prison camp. But you're optimistic that you're going to get here. On a moment-by-moment basis, though, you're asking yourself the question, how can I better prepare for the next day? And again, I know what some of you are thinking, and I've thought this myself. Well, what kind of life is that where you're always just preparing? Seems like a horrible life. It's not really. And there's a boundary to the biology of your life. You're going to do it anyway. Let me just get frank with you and raw here. You may not agree with this, but why do you think why do you think biology has made it so that humans are attracted to other people and want to have sex and reproduce and have children, or get married and start a family and have kids? What do you think kids are? They're preparing for you dying, my friend. They're your genes going, okay, you're not going to be here forever, Ty. Prepare. So there's a biological boundary here. And that's whether you're an atheist or religion, I bet you'll agree with me on that. Now, you might not agree that that's the only part of life, but that is. From the ancient religious beliefs that, be fruitful and multiply, or just all the way to the most hardcore atheists, they would agree on that. And everybody agrees we're going to die, religious or not. So you're already in process of preparation. What you don't want to do is what Freud talks about in Civilization's Discontents, is so fill up your life with intoxicant substitutive issues or diversionary issues, right? And that's what so many people do, are intoxicating things. So respect the boundaries. So if you intoxicate your brain, try to delude your brain that this isn't going to happen, then you're going to be that person always touching the fence. You're going to be always the unprepared person, not like the Shaolin said. You're going to always be having a lot of pain going back and forth in your life because you forgot stuff. So prepare is the simple answer. Whether it's John Wooden in the 50s or 60s teaching this, or Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, teaching this thousands of years ago, they all said the same thing. Prepare for what's difficult when it's easy. It's that simple. So what I learned with Joel Salatin at that barn on that farm was, before I get ready and walk a mile, ask myself, what are you missing, Ty? Look around and assume you're missing something. So don't just go, like touching the electric fence, nothing could be wrong. Bzz. No, be like, probably something's, I've missed stuff before. I bet you I'm missing. What could I do better? Okay, let me double count. Do I have that? Do I have that? I have that. I have that. Okay. Double counting, double checking. Takes 30 seconds. So that's why I said, people are like, well, if you're always preparing, you're never living life, you're not present in the moment. I'm just like, BS. Try my way. Of course, don't take it to extreme. You wouldn't want to be OCD and sitting in the barn preparing for 4 hours. No, Joel's like, let's go do it now. But you could take 30 seconds. When you wake up today, sorry, you're already woken up, hopefully. When you wake up tomorrow, just ask yourself the simplest of all questions. What can I do to prepare for the guaranteed biological, financial, social, and, interpersonal crises that could arise over the next week? Well, if you're a man, pretty much all, and women too, all of your health issues, for the most part, I'm overgeneralizing, come from storing belly fat. What do they call it? Visceral, the kind of fat you don't want. So what do you got to do to get rid of that? Shaolin monk, it's like, don't be complaining about the health issues that you have in 20 years, because you had 20 years day by day to not be the zombie chasing some random mirage of intoxicant substitutes or diversions. No, just plan for it a few minutes a day. My stepdad, his dad was always in great shape, and he was like 60 or 70, always looked healthy, and I asked him one time, what do you do to stay so healthy? He's like, every morning I wake up and I do 50 jumping jacks, 50 or 10 push-ups, and 10 or 30 sit-ups. I forget the number. I'm like, there's a man that's following what the Shaolin monk said. And he has a few minutes every day, but eventually your brain rewires and you begin to like those moments of the day. That's why I said you'll be happier for this. Solving the puzzle before the puzzle's a nightmare becomes fun. That's why I said people who put off these things that you must address, like your physical health, just address it now. I'm really big on this, I think it's Benjamin Franklin who's like, do not put off for tomorrow what you can do today. Just do it today. Rewire the brain over these 67 days. You're with me here, especially around procrastination. So immediately start to prepare. Pull out a pencil and paper today. Go, what's the worst thing that could happen to me? Health, wealth, love, and happiness. Now, the worst thing with health is you get so sick you die. So maybe you need to get life insurance. Maybe you need to get to a will. Maybe you need to talk to somebody and say, hey, if I die, here's my password so you can log in and you'll be okay. Or maybe you can go, maybe I'm not going to drive a motorcycle anymore because that, 10 times more likely to kill me than anything, or whatever. Maybe I'm not going to eat at McDonald's. Whatever that thing might be, you can fix it physically. Just ask yourself. Munger said it made him happy. Why don't you try that way? He seems to have known a lot of stuff. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett said he's the smartest man on the planet. Bill Gates doesn't give out many compliments. When someone like Bill Gates says this is the smartest man on the planet, he may be saying that tongue in cheek, but I bet you he's not a dumb guy, and he bet you. Well, I would assume he's a lot smarter than me. Not sure. Maybe you're a lot smarter than him, but it's still wise to heed those words. So think about your money. It's the worst thing that could happen to you. How could you prepare? Simplest thing, investor mentality. Start investing, saving. You got to save first. Make sure you have enough cash before you start investing in the stock market or in real estate. Save up a ton of cash. Then you can do what Warren Buffett says. If you save, someone asked about the Berkshire Hathaway meeting that I was at a couple months ago or a while ago, and it's like, why is there $20 billion kept in cash at Berkshire Hathaway? And Buffett, I think it was Buffett or Munger, said, I don't like to rely on the kindness of strangers. When I want to do something, when a dark day comes, I got enough money there that I don't have to go begging everybody to lend me some money. Maybe you've gotten to the point where you're lending. That's not preparing. Prepare. Like Louis Zamperini, he was preparing when he didn't realize it when he was preparing for the Olympics. He was training his lungs, so when that B-24 bomber hit the water at 200 miles an hour, the guy next to him was instantly killed. The plane instantly broke into pieces, caught on fire. The whole ocean was on fire, or at least around him. He went straight underwater with wires wrapped all around him from the crash. Went 20, 30, 40 feet into the Pacific, sinking. He said, I had learned how to hold my breath and to control my breath. And that's why when the wires slowly became unentangled, he was able to still be underwater for a minute, 2 minutes, and have the composure to get to the top, get to the life raft, fight off a great white shark, fight off a Zero Japanese fighter shooting machine gun bullets on him, go through 2 years of torture, make it back. And remember, even before that, before he crashed, he had been through one of the biggest dog fights anyone in his squad or in that division of the military ever survived. 500 bullets had hit the plane he was in, and he saved 3 people's lives and all. This is a man that's all preparation. It's all preparation. It's all being a proper blend of optimist or pessimist. It's not some pie in the sky. Oh, I speak things into existence that don't. I mean, there's some truth to that. We're going to actually talk about that, and we're going to talk about Wittgenstein and the great philosopher about the power of words. But for now, my friend, for now, words only going to get you so far. It's okay to have some words. It's okay to have the power of positive thinking. Norman Vincent Peale, isn't that his book? As long as it's tempered and surrounded by a heck of a lot of preparation, tools in the tool belt, mindset of understanding biological systems, that some things are out of your control, and that they're electric fence wires, that you stay within the boundaries, don't touch them, or you're going to get shocked. You pull it all together, and then you expect you're not surprised when life throws hardships at you, because that's what life likes to do. that is not only something that happens just because of the law of physics. There's no, meteor hit the planet, killed all the dinosaurs, they say, possibly. It's not like someone purposely was like, let's take this meteor and make it hit the dinosaurs. Some of it's just the pure laws of physics. So you got the laws of physics, which don't care about you. Number two, you have the other biological creatures, bacteria, viruses, that want to be alive too. And to them, they claim just as much right to this planet as you and I. So you got sickness. You have natural cellular degeneration. Your telomeres, change size, lengthen. Other humans socially have their own best interests in mind. Richard Dawkins, The Selfish Gene. David Buss, Evolutionary Psychology. And happiness, we're not built to naturally be happy. So you have all these mitigating factors, and you might be like, Ty, you're just painting the worst picture of life. No. I'm happy. And people who are happy are able to embrace these things and be happy in spite or even because of these things. Now, one thing I was saying about Seligman, about this thing, the kind of counter argument to everything being your fault, like the Shaolin monk. When something happens and you messed up and you made a mistake and some bad things happen to you, first just say, everything's my fault, I could have prepared better. But at the same time, it's okay. Remember, there's no black and white, there's no 500-year-old black and white mind when we're doing this conversation and this rewiring of your brain. You just go, hey, I messed up. But it's okay to be a teeny bit delusional. Be like, I was busy at that time, so I'll do better next time. And then just do better next time. You see what I did there? I didn't abdicate responsibility. It's like, but I also didn't fixate. Abdicate, fixate. Abdication means take responsibility. Be like, I should have prepared. I should have thought about the electric fence parts. Or if I got beat up walking down the street, man, I should have started doing this Shaolin when I was 5 years old. Don't abdicate your duty to be responsible and live up and own up to it. But at the same time, do not freak out and fixate and go, I messed up once, I'm going to mess up tomorrow. No, I never do. No, just move forward. Time's already pushing you forward. It's like an escalator. You're on it and you can't get off it. You ever been in those escalators where there's glass walls? What are you going to do? I guess you theoretically could try to run down it, but imagine this is an escalator with people right behind you. They won't let you. They're crowding it up. That's you and me. We're just moving up. So don't fixate. Just don't abdicate and don't fixate. I didn't plan that to rhyme, but it does, so maybe that'll be easier to remember. And once and that's also a trait of very successful people. Okay? They live up to their mistakes. They ponder them. They think, what did I do right? They talk about this in the book The Snowball, about Warren Buffett. He has this ability, and then he never thinks about it again. He seals it off in his mind. You might think, that's delusion. That's borderline schizophrenia. That's, no, it's not. I'm not talking about extreme cases of this. It's funny, I get these comments on YouTube. People are just taking things to the extreme and not in the good way. There's a good way to do, argue ad absurdum and things like this and logical tools and inversion, but anyway, I won't talk about that now. But you should not get trapped and locked in and go, I will never do better. You can do better. That's the good news. Remember why human consciousness exists, according to scientists. It exists because we're simulation machines. You do have the ability to simulate, to take data from the past mistakes and simulate out into the future that it would be painful to repeat it and change. We are self-education machines. You are. That's why I'm so big. That's why I'm surrounded by all these books in my house. That's why I read a book a day. That's why I tell people, read. Because, and I'm going to come full circle here, if you really want to prepare, read a lot. Even interesting, Louis Zamperini, when he was being shot at by these zero fighter that saw their life raft, and instead of saving them, shot at them. And he had read or learned from an educational course the military provided that bullets only go 3 feet deep into the water. So he just swam like 5 feet under the water and held his breath for like 3 minutes. By the way, while fighting off the sharks that were trying to eat him, that continually followed them for the whole 43 days, basically. So he took an oar, jumped out, had his other buddy, like, I don't know, it's insanity, right? Fighting off sharks while bullets are being shot at you. It's like the ult and surviving. So I told people this is a real man, and I'm so sad. I had a scheduled meeting to meet him in person in LA, and he died, and I'm like, oh my God. By the way, find these old guys before they die, these old women that have lived real lives, and go sit down. I tell people, go to an old folks home. I used to do this. I haven't done it as much. I did it as a teenager. Just drive down there. One day every quarter of the year, 4 times a year. Just walk in. Those people are so lonely, and the staff doesn't care. There's no security issues. You can just walk in unannounced and say, I want to talk to people. There's a lot of wisdom tied up in the brains of those people. And this guy missed it, but man, he's under the water. He's fighting off sharks and machine gun bullets. And he pulls through. And it's through preparation beforehand. It's through optimism about the end game. But yet it's by being a learning machine. Because he said, I had learned when other people didn't read the military training books or attend the classes that told them how to, fight off sharks, for example. He learned that. He had learned and simulated. So don't listen to anybody that tells you reading isn't good. They're babbling. There are other forms of knowledge that you can get too. Books aren't the extensive ones, but to the extent that you do this, you are fulfilling what the Shaolin monk says you should fulfill, and you are avoiding what Joel Salatin says you should avoid. If it's not in your head, it'll be in your hill. So what I want you to write down on the page to complete the lesson and on your 67 steps. What's a prime example of much pain? Much pain in your heel, much in preparation. What can you learn from it? Own up to it. Don't abdicate. And yet now, how can you move on and not fixate? No abdication, no fixation. Get rid of those both. Learn. And what is a specific area? Maybe it's your finance. Maybe you got to save some money, my friend. You got to have some money in the bank account. You have to. Be a learning machine. Maybe you are very overweight or a little bit overweight. You got to prepare for the dark day. It's going to come for you. And it's going to come real fast if you get too out of shape. Maybe you don't have, maybe your friends, family, romance, social is all in chaos. Live up to it. Own it. Be optimistic about the end game. Be pessimistic or preparation-minded, I should say, on a day-to-day basis. And then go in and fix it. Don't fixate on the negative. Fix it. Literally. I don't mean that in some metaphor. Just fix it. Call somebody up you haven't called. Be like, hey, I was a jerk in the past. I'm not going to be one anymore. Give me a second chance. I don't know what you have to do. And maybe some of them, you'll lose them forever if they're friend. Remember, it's a pain in your heel. If it wasn't in your head preparedly beforehand, maybe it's something about your happiness. Pick it. Write it down. Intention. Get this down. I look at these. We're a social element. Comment back and forth on other people's. And remember, get that private journal. If you feel better about it, you can email it to Ty Lopez. I do look at them. Okay? Or we can attach them to your profile on the site on tylopez.com or whatever site you're on watching this. All right? Remember, 67 steps. These are not to be taken out of order or in pieces. You need all of them, and this is an important one. Every time you make a mistake, go, I didn't have it in my head, so I had to have the pain in my heel. I had to walk it off. I had to go fix it. Start cutting out the heel pain by just preparing. Prepare for what's difficult when it is easy. Lao Tzu. So see you on the next one. Be reliable. See you on the next one. Thanks.